Good evening, everybody. It is Straight Talk Food for the Soul. And I have a returning guest tonight, Mr. King, who's an amazing guy. We kind of known each other for about a year now. And he has an amazing podcast. Once he introduces himself, we're going to have prayer and then we're going to get started. So tell them who you are, Elam, and where they can find you.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Claudette, for giving me an opportunity to speak on your platform today. Really appreciate that. Of course, I am Elam B. King, located here in Atlanta, Georgia. I am a relationship coach as well as a three-time author as well. And I will say my mantra that I try to go by is that in order for us to improve these communities, we need to improve our families. And so in order for us to improve our families, we need to take a look at the two people who are most important inside of building that family, which is the man and the woman. So I'm just here to just share a little light here and there. And of course, you can find me on all platforms at Elam B. King, or you can go to elambking.com.
All right, Elam, if you would pray us in, we'll get started, sir.
Absolutely. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for giving us an opportunity of coming together today. Thank you so much for Claudette's platform, giving everybody an opportunity to just learn just a little bit more about relationships. We ask that you come into this evening's podcast and give us the opportunity of speaking the words that you wish for us to say to your people. In your name, amen.
Amen, sir. I thank you so much. We want to say hello to the guests who have already popped on tonight. We're going to have our scripture, which comes from Psalms 104:9. And tonight it's about clear boundaries, and that's what our scripture is about. And it says, you set a boundary that they may not pass, so that they might not again cover the earth. So even the scripture speaks of boundaries. And I did not make that scripture up. It was in the Bible.
Right.
And we don't make clear boundaries. I've been one that have pushed the line back because I love somebody and I allowed them to infringe on who I was. Right. And people ask, why do you have so many topics on relationships? Because we're not real good at them. And the only way that we get better is to get great information from people who have studied and who can teach it. And Elam, you are one.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, I would say that statement that you just made was super powerful because we're not good at them, right? And here's the interesting thing. So a lot of, and now that we're all grown, right? If we think about it, most of the life skills, there was no class on those things. Okay, let's think about it. Let's just go down. Let's go to health, right? Yeah, did we have health class? Yeah, but we talked about sexual education in that class, right? It wasn't about really why we shouldn't be intaking sugar. You know, why we got to watch our carbs, why we got to watch our, eat the real pieces of eating healthy. We really didn't have that. You might have had like 30 minutes of it in a whole semester. But think about it. That's a lifelong thing, right? Why we shouldn't have been eating the food we was eating. Let's think about finances, right? We don't even have to go there. I was a business major. I took finance. Guess what? We didn't talk about finance in finance class. Okay. We talked about formulas that we do not use on average, other than maybe your debt ratio, other than maybe one formula, the rest of them we don't use, right? And let's think about relationships. Most of us are baptism by fire. We learn from our friends, we learn from our parents, we learn from people that we don't even know. We learn from television, right? And now, oh goodness gracious, now we learn from social media. So, and that's why there's multiple different ways that people look at relationships, and they're like, well, they're not doing it. Well, they're not doing it. And we don't even really know what's good for ourselves. So, everybody needs a class. Classes.
Well, we're in class tonight, everybody. Thank you for popping on. I appreciate you spending your Saturday night with us. And we're going to jump in. Our first word tonight is boundaries. And during my study, I was looking up all these different definitions, and this is the one I came up with. The lines we draw for ourselves in terms of the level of comfort around others. What do you think about that definition, Elam?
That's exactly what it is. I mean, and this is the reason why that I like to share sometimes with people who are single, right? Because married folk, they get on my nerves. They think that they somebody, right? They think that okay, that they look down on single folk. And a lot of times I try to share with my singles. I say, listen, you're in the best situation because you have an opportunity of designing exactly what type of relationship that you want, setting those boundaries, right? And making sure that you hold to them, first of all. Okay, you know what they are, you hold to them, and you make sure that you're holding somebody accountable to them as well. And so I can't say that anymore. And then I think the bigger piece would be, even for those who are married, maybe your boundaries have changed, redefining them, and then making sure that your spouse is willing to sign up for who you have evolved and who you have become, because we do change. And for better or worse, it sounds good until you're in it and it's worse and you're like, I don't even know what's going on, right? And I think the challenge that exists there is that not only are we not receiving the coaching to allow us to navigate through that, we don't even know who we are. And I want to say that again, because there's a whole bunch of grown 40, 50, and 60-year-old people. You don't know who you are. Yes, you get up every day, you look in that mirror. Okay. Yes, you know that you might like pizza versus, I don't know, cabbage or something. I don't know. Irish yesterday, just say this cabbage, right? So you know what food, but you don't know what you don't even know how to receive love, right? You don't even know what you don't like until it happens, and then you don't even remember what it was. It's like, so you don't even give a person a chance to sign up for who you are. And you go into a relationship, but we're in relationships just doing the same thing that we did in the last relationship. And we're wondering why we keep running into the same situation. We don't even have our boundaries.
All right. I looked up the definition for clear. Easy to perceive and understand and to interpret.
So obviously we can put those two together, of clear boundaries. And again, that goes back to just what I was saying regarding you knowing exactly what they are. But see, here's the thing. And I like to say this to people, you ask people a lot of times about love languages, right? And so, people are like, yeah, I know my love language. So, okay, so you know your love language. Your love language is quality time or words of affirmation or whatever, right? I'm a words of affirmation, physical touch person, right? So there's a difference between knowing it and then knowing what does it look like for you, right? Because it's not just because I'm physical touch, it doesn't mean I want to have sex every day. Doesn't, right? I am the kiss me when I leave, kiss me when you come back, hold hands. That's me, right? So it doesn't mean that I like to be touched everywhere on my body either. There are places I'm like, leave that alone, right? So I mean, I'm just saying, because I know me, so I'm able to share that with somebody. I mean, these are the real conversations, particularly in the church, and this is what really gets on my nerves. In the church, we don't have these types of conversations. Right, we're married to somebody and engaging in physical intimacy with the person, but we're not talking to them about what we need and what we like. Right, and so or tying it to the church, like, oh, you're in the church, you're not supposed to do that. Not do what? It says the bedroom's undefiled. The end. Right, so whatever it looks like for you and your spouse is okay. God is up there like, great job. You know what I'm saying? Do that again tomorrow. Right, so. We're not clearly, if you're quality time, what does quality time look like for you? If you're let's just say, gentlemen, if your wife or your girlfriend says she's quality time, does that mean she want to be up under you all day, every day? No, it might just mean she wants Fridays and Saturdays for date night. You're clear the rest of the week. Do you know what the definition is for that person? They're just, so we're not, and then also we're not sharing what it is that we want. So we're not asking and we're not sharing. And that's why I like to say the word intimacy stands for into me you see, right? You have to allow somebody to see into you and you have to see into them, right? And so that's when we're looking at clear boundaries, you're not only setting what direction that you wanted to go in, but you're sharing details. And guess what? As those details change every 10 to 15 years, we're redefining those boundary lines and saying, okay, these are now the clear boundaries. These are the things I like going forward.
Now, everybody, you know why I asked him to come on for this conversation tonight. We hadn't even jumped into the questions, and we real good right now. Last word, limits. Restrictions on size and amount of something that's permissible or possible.
So, you know, I would say that where people might not look at limit correctly is knowing, again, sharing with somebody how far or let's say, what's the best way to put this? How far you can take me on a certain situation, right? That's the best way to put it. I was looking for a political way of saying, no, how far you can take me before I get heated, right? You know, one time or no time, right? So, you know, 2 times, whatever it is, and sharing, you know, hey, I'm cool to this point. After that, we're going to have a problem here, right? And so we'll do it with our children quick. If you do that one more time, right? Everybody said that at least 10,000 times to their kids, right? But we're not sharing these types of limits and boundaries with our significant other. And then when they go across that limit, now we're mad because they didn't know what we didn't communicate. And this is when the tenured relationships get on my nerves, because you assume that because you've been with this person for 10 years, 50, my 15, 20-year, 30-year couples, the one, I love them on one aspect, but the other reason why they get on my nerves, because they think they know something, right? They think, and here's the thing, and then the levels of assumptions that go in there are because we've been together 20 years, you should know my limit. No, they don't. I guarantee you, they don't know it, right? They don't know all your boundaries and it's nothing. It's only a challenge if you have not clearly communicated them. And let me just say this really quickly, because I think that this has a lot to do with the reception of this information. The challenge that I run into with a lot of couples is that people say, I told them the things I needed. I told them, you know, what I liked and I didn't like. And I always ask them, when and where did you do it? And what I find out a lot of times is that people end up venting how they feel during arguments, right? During heated fellowship, if you will, right? When most of the time nobody is listening, because everybody is speaking, is listening with intent to respond. So as you're speaking, the only thing that person is doing is on deck, like, give me one. It's kind of like jump rope, right? Like, you know, like double dutch. Like this person is sitting there waiting to get in. That's all they're doing. They're sitting there waiting to get in the conversation. They're not really listening to you, right? So, but what I find is that when we sit down and we have a discussion, you know, once a month, once every other month, you know, once a quarter, at the end of the year, whatever, right? When we sit down and say, this is who I am today, everybody's happy. Right? Everybody's nice. Maybe you just finished, you know, making love. Maybe I just finished watching a good movie. Pick the good time to sit down. Everybody's ears are open. And we state the clear boundaries and the limits that are necessary for the survival of our relationship. Right? People forget the business aspect that exists of a relationship. If your revenues are low in a business and your expenses are high, what do? You call a meeting.
Yeah.
Right? And you say, this is, if we keep going in this direction, right, we're going to go under. Our business is going to go out, whatever, right? But we'll look in a relationship, see that the emotional expenses are high, and figure that it's just going to magically, deliciously just come together because we've been together. Or this is when people like, you know, this is just trust God and love. And God is sitting there like, you got some actions you need to take. Besides praying to me, you also got some actions that you need to take. You need to seek counsel in this space. Don't go to the first question, because I'll keep going.
Okay. My first question might be just, what does a clear boundary really look like?
Well, I think we just kind of really touched base on, even when I was just talking about the love languages, right? What does a clear boundary look like? These are mine. You know, again, we'll just use that for example. These are my love languages: words of affirmation, physical touch, gifts, quality time. Now, guess what? you're not always matched with somebody who is your same love language, right? So somebody else's could be quality time and let's say gifts, right? Okay, well, this is the question I ask. What does that look like for you? Because maybe during the day I got my 9 to 5, and then from 5 to 12, I'm relationship coaching, book writing, speaking engagements, whatever, right? So I'm not the biggest quality time person. I'm not, right? That's the reason why a lot of times on Mondays and Fridays I don't do relationship coaching, because at the minimum I'm able to put some time to the side for someone, right? So, but I'm not the biggest quality time person. So guess what? I could be a really nice person, right? I could be a great dad. I could be all that. But then because I don't meet this expectation of you, I won't work out with somebody. I won't, right? And just because you have two nice people doesn't mean that that's your person, right? So, so step one, we want to make sure that we're setting the proper boundary, right? And qualifying for the person that we're with, right? If we don't qualify, the relationship is going to end. Guess what? Hold on, married people. You need to requalify for the person that you're with. Because just because I get it, the ring and it was real nice, the wedding, right? You still need to requalify. You're a different person. They might be a different person, and it's actually okay. Anything that does not change, it will atrophy, aka die. So everything changes. So you're not the same person that you were when you got married 10, 15, 20 years ago, 3 years ago. You're not. Sit down and have a conversation. Make sure you qualify for the person that you're with, because if not, then you definitely need to be in counsel to see how maybe we can evolve some of this. Because if that person needs something that you are not satisfying, that's going to create a issue in the church, out of the church, whatever, right? Okay. You got to think about it like this, especially my church folk. Watch this. Okay. Lack of communication creates distance. Distance creates a gap. The enemy lies in the gap, and they sit right there. And remember, they're here to kill, steal, and destroy. So that's the job. So there's now a gap. Okay. That gap is going to get filled by something or somebody. If you choose to overlook it, say it doesn't matter, suppress it, whether it's in yourself or suppressing somebody else, guess what? The enemy's still lying in that gap. And at some point, that enemy gonna pop up, and it's gonna look like this. It's gonna smell like this, right? And it's gonna make you do this, right? And then when this gets done, then everybody's like, oh, well, they shouldn't have stepped out. They should have. Yes, you should not have. But the gap sat right there, and you chose to overlook it. And the Bible talks clearly about temptation. Remember, the flesh is what it is, weak. It's no good thing. So you letting the enemy sit in the gap while your person possesses the flesh that God said that there's no good thing in it, and you think something's not going to happen? That doesn't, if you say it out loud, it doesn't make sense. But that's what people do right now, especially in the church. They don't want to say nothing, right? And then when the relationship doesn't work out, it's like, oh, well, they didn't pray enough. No, you didn't act enough. You didn't act on that gap. Somebody not going to like me, but it's okay.
And you know what? It really, really is okay, because it should be taught in the church.
It should be.
And I am part of leadership of the church, and that's why my platform is around. So that us that are Christians, that we can get the information you may not get in church.
Mm-hmm.
So they can come here on Saturday night and get what they need and take it back to their tribe.
Right. And that's we have to. I'm actually, and involved in a couple of different groups. Barbershop Church is a podcast that I do with a group of gentlemen where we're bringing some things like this to the surface as well. And I see Gloria Green just made a comment, and I want to jump in on that just really quickly, because she said something about, her husband won't talk, still 43 years coming this month. And we have to also understand that if you are a baby boomer or Generation X, which is probably most of the people listening on this phone, right? So if you were born between 1946 and I'd say 81 at the minimum, right? We were raised, so X was raised by a baby boomer, right? Baby boomers were, and all before, All those men were raised a certain type of way. And guess what, ladies? You are a part of raising your sons like that too, still today. Okay. Well, I'm gonna show you how. Show you how you do it with your sons. Don't cry. Don't act like a girl, right? Nobody cares about the way you feel, right? Sacrifice, right? That's what it's all about, right? Watch this. A happy wife, happy life, right? There are these things that were burned into our minds as young men about not communicating, because communication equals weakness, because communication equals emotion, and emotion equals weakness. Only women can be emotional. Men can't be emotional. We can't do that, right? So if I feel so if I'm raised to not feel, then here you come along and you make me love you and I fall for you, right? Now you require something that you've been doing most of your life, which is communication, right? Because estrogen, because it's obviously in higher levels inside of women, and you can read about this, estrogen actually gives you the ability to want to communicate more. So that's why women are like, they always say women are chatty and men aren't like that as much, right? Because we have more what? Testosterone. We have a little bit of estrogen, but you have a whole lot of it. That actually causes you to speak more. So biologically you speak. So when you're coming across now this man that's not talking, it would seem as if he's not talking because he doesn't care, right? And I want to let you know that because we were taught to not care, right? We don't even know how we feel, but we feel some type of way. We don't know what to do with it, because if we say something that's emotional, and I'm now less than a man, right? And so this is the reason why, again, with being in counsel. Watch this. Men don't want to be in no counsel. Watch this. Everybody listening to me right now is old enough to hear that they say that when men don't like to stop and ask for what?
Help and directions.
Come on. So when we were growing up, when your dad was driving and he was lost, he didn't want to stop and ask for directions. Why is that? I did not raise you, Claudette, but why did you answer that question? Right? Because you were raised around that same thing too, with men not even wanting to ask for direction. So imagine this. I don't even want to ask for directions and I'm lost and I'm burning gas. I got my family in the car, right? So I don't even want to ask for directions. That's why it's good that GPSs came along, because we don't have to ask no more, right?
Thank God.
But think about it. So if I will run my family straight off almost a cliff of just lost down the road, what makes you think that when I feel an emotion of love or hurt or pain, what makes you think I'm going to stop and ask for help? So it's a complete unpacking and repacking that has to be done inside of that space. And I always try to share with women, and I say this to Miss Green, right? I always say this. It's when people come to me, right, about 70% of the time, the man doesn't even know. They will hire me, pay me, and the husband or the boyfriend doesn't even know. And what they always say is, I'm going to figure out a way to get him to come. And I always say this. I say, you want to look at this. It's kind of like, imagine both of you have the flu, both have a cold, right? And you're hacking up and you're coughing and wheezing and all that, nose running or whatever, right? And then imagine this. You start taking your medicine and they don't, right? And then after a week, right, your cough goes away. They still over there hacking up their lungs, right? After like 2-3 weeks, then your nose isn't running anymore, not sneezing, and they looking over at you like, yo, why you look like you feel better? Your eyes ain't watery, and I'm over here hacking up and coughing and wheezing, right? That's the same thing it is when you start counseling, right? You go, right? And you start taking the medication. He is watching you. Trust me. 100% of the time, by the 4th or 5th session, the man shows up. 100% of the time. Why is that? Because first of all, you're getting better. You're healing. That's number one. So just like your nose has stopped running, right? Number two, that's a man talking to his woman. You gonna cry with me? You gonna laugh with me? You gonna have homework with me? He's watching that. He's like, who does making my woman cry, do homework, laugh, and learn about herself? And then I'm cute. So he really don't like that. You know what I'm saying? So 100% of the time, the man shows up. So that's why I tell ladies. So Miss Green and anybody else who's having challenges in this area of getting your man to, or you guys need to do something different and move forward, and you're tired and you've hit your limit, start going to counseling. I promise you he's going to come. I've been doing this virtually for about 6 years now. 100% of the time, my phone will ring or I will get a text message. Hey, this is Mr. Brown. I am Claudette's husband. I wanted to set up a time with you. Mm-hmm. And they'll always call me like, oh my God, you said that's what was going to happen. I'm like, yep, I know. So you got to start taking the medication, Miss Green. He coming. Trust me.
All righty then. Question number 2. If you're dating and you had no boundaries in the beginning, and all of a sudden now you feel like you need to create them, how do you do that when you didn't have any at first?
You just do it. Let's not overthink this, right? What happens in any other, okay, you never knew how to drive, and then somewhere around 17 or 18, you started driving, right? Okay, you went to high school and you weren't a doctor, but then you went to college and you learned, and now you're a doctor, right? So everything else, you don't always have to do it from it would be best. Let's be very clear. It would be best to start with boundaries in the beginning, but we also grow, right? And sometimes we just don't know that we don't know. There are people that didn't even know that they need to have boundaries. So then one day you learn it. What does that mean? You can't set boundaries? Yes, you can. Now, here's the thing. This is the scary part. And that's why I said earlier, sometimes the person who you're with doesn't qualify for you, and you don't know it until you draw a boundary. Once you draw that boundary, it's kind of like, ooh, this person doesn't qualify for me. But guess what? Now you got 10, 15, 20 years assets. You got little Johnny, right? And little Susan, right? You got these kids, you got this house and all this and that. You're like, oh my gosh. And that's when it's a tough decision, right? And you have to make the decision to stay in and shut up, okay? Because you don't want to draw the boundaries. That's on you. But as for me and mine, I'm going to redefine and requalify myself and the other person ongoing. I might not have ever had this boundary, but moving forward, this is what it is. I will give you now. This is when grace comes in to give the person time to adjust to that. I mean, if you just went 10 years and you never said that you wanted to have sex 4 times a week and it was only one time before, okay, well, maybe we got to give them a ramp, a 6-month, a year ramp, give them some grace, right? Maybe they didn't quality time you before. Maybe they didn't, do some acts of service for you before. You give them a time to do that. Let them go mess it up and get it right. Change is difficult, right? Now, it shouldn't take 4, 5, 10 years for them to get it. You have to set clear limits of how long you're going to go before this needs to happen. But there's nothing wrong with a person setting boundaries and they've never had boundaries before. I encourage it.
I say if you set a boundary with a person that you're dating and you care for and they're not for it, then they're not for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really what it is. I mean, some people can't meet your expectation. It's okay. That's the reason why I say to people, you got to watch before you start having sex with somebody. Ladies in particular. Okay. Let me share something with you, biological ladies, because yes, we have sex in the church too. I know we can go down that list of what you feel like you shouldn't do, but those that are, okay, that are not married, let me share with you what's happening, ladies. All right. And I asked this question to the floor. Okay. Everybody knows what's the reason for a man's orgasm, right? To release the sperm, right? All right. But very few people know the reason for a woman's orgasm. Okay.
I'm a woman. Tell me.
Okay. Most people don't know, and that's okay. So you have to remember, obviously, that your body is designed, ladies, particularly for, when it comes to reproductive wise, right? It's designed for you to be pregnant. That's why it's so hard sometimes to not get pregnant, right? Okay. So whether you want children or not, we have to understand that your body releases an egg every month, right? You got the left ovary, right? It goes back and forth. Those who are still on their cycle right now, do you know which ovary released this month? Was it your left one or your right one? No, you don't know the answer on average, right? But your body does know, okay? So what that means is that as that egg is traveling down the fallopian tubes, right, Mother Nature's goal is to increase your ability to get pregnant. So when the sperm is released, right, the sperm can go left or they can go right. If the egg got released on the right And all the sperm that go left, they're just going to get absorbed by your body. The ones that go right, they're going to have a higher chance of getting to that egg, right? Okay. So because your body knows that which tube that the egg is in, which one released it, right? When a woman has an orgasm, it's squeezing the sperm in the direction that the egg came from. So it's squeezing it to the right. It's squeezing it to the left. Okay. I know it feels good to you, but it's actually doing something inside. It's trying to get you pregnant. Right. So that means that's the reason why, ladies, be real. Right. That's the reason why that most of the time who you remember the most. Right. Okay. Keep it real. Right. It's the one that actually helped you to get to a climax. Right. So guess what? That tells your brain this person has a higher probability of siring my children. So I should be with this one, because this one can get me pregnant. Whether you want children or not, it doesn't matter. It's telling your brain, go with this one, right? So the more you're having orgasms, guess what? The more you're telling your brain, this is the person that I really need to be with, right? And so that's why when you detach from that person, it's so painful, right? And so I just want to share with you that people just think that they could just have sex with somebody. It's very difficult for women to consistently have sex with one man and with the same person or persons, right? And they're reaching orgasm and them not get attached to them. That's why a lot of times when I hear women can do the same thing men can do. No, you don't. We release and we roll out. You receive, and your brain's telling you something. That's why there's a difference. I don't care how people think that there isn't. That's biological, so you can't beat that. So we have to pay attention to that. So guess what? We'll take it a little step further, right? This is the reason why that you begin to turn a blind eye to certain things that you don't like, but you're just allowing it to happen. Oh, that's just who he is or whatever. But you really can't stand what that man is doing. But the reason why you're choosing to stay with him, you keep having orgasms. That's why if you want to really see somebody, stop having sex with them. You'll start seeing all types of stuff, right? So that's why I always share with women, hey, listen, you really want to see what your relationship looks like and you're not married and you want to see what direction it's going to go in, don't have sex. Watch what happens. You'll see everything then. And then them boundaries and them limits going to come out real fast. Yep.
I am enjoying you this evening, Elam. I am enjoying this. Okay, next question. Is there a difference between wanting a man and needing a man?
Is there a difference between wanting a man and needing a man? Yeah, well, the answer is yes, there is. I think we can want a lot of things, but then we might know that it's not good for us, right? You know how what were they talking about a couple of weeks ago with Michael B. Jordan, how they would say he wasn't edgy enough, right? Because they want the edgy dudes, right? You like women want what they can't have, or you want the bad boy or whatever. You can want a lot of things, right? But then know that it's not good for you, right? I want some Fruit Loops. I just know that the sugar's not good, right? So we want things all the time, right? When we go to need, I would say that it's so subjective, because for some people right now, they can't even imagine not being with the person that they're with right now, right? We actually, again, biologically get into each other's central nervous system to the point where it feels like that you do need the person. And we also might have placed ourselves in a situation where how we do things on a daily basis, we rely on someone to hold up, a certain end of a responsibility or a duty, right? So I guess it's so broad when we say need, because you might need the person because you might need them to help wheel you around the house, but if we go emotionally and we say, you might need somebody or they complete you or whatever, I think that's really a maturity thing. But I don't want to speak for anybody by saying that you don't need somebody. I think that you need somebody. As humans, we're built to be interactive with somebody else. We're not built to be alone, right? So I do need to have a partner. Yes. And again, scriptural, it talks about how it's not good that men are alone, right? And so it's so broad. We could go
Let
out.
me let me nail it down. I was listening to a podcast and I heard some gentlemen talking on that podcast, and they were saying they didn't want a woman that needed them. They wanted a woman to want them.
I can understand that to a certain degree. And if they're talking about, I can understand it, because the challenge that goes into that is that you might overlook what is actually necessary for your own needs, right? And I know that we make sacrifices and things of that nature, right? But I don't think that anybody should be with anybody at the state for what's the best way to put this? And it's detrimental to yourself, right? So you come first, then they do. Okay. So if you are not able to function correctly inside of a relationship based upon your needs, and you're only going for their needs, that's unhealthy, right? Because you matter. You come first. I say the one person that does not show up inside of most relationships is ourselves. What we do is we attach ourselves to somebody else, and then we end up resenting them because they're actually not us. So we're attaching to their expectations and the things that they want, and we're totally overlooking ourselves. And we'll mess around and start resenting that person when we actually gave them that power. So that's why we need to make sure that we know who we are first before we commit inside of a relationship, so that we know that, again, the boundaries and limits and all that have been set. So, the differences is, so I can understand a man saying that he doesn't want her to need him, because I would like for her to be able to function independently. And then we find a level of interdependence, which means that some of you, some of me. Right? That's what interdependence is, right? We're not standing alone. We're connected, right? And we make those connections ongoing, right? So I get it. It sounds good, but I think there's so much unpacking that has to be done inside of that need versus want. But I see what they're saying. I hope I answered that question.
Okay, my next question, Elam. Mm-hmm. If someone says they don't want to date you, is that rejection or preference?
It's both. If I gently say I don't want to date you, I rejected you. I was just nice about it, right? I could say heck no and roll out, so I could just say, you know what, really right now I'm not looking to commit or go out or whatever with anybody right now. I'm just, I don't know, taking school. I'm in school or something, I don't know. So, it's both. As a guy, that's something that comes with the territory, right? I know some, because why? We're the hunters, we're the pursuers. So, been rejected, keep it moving, somebody doesn't qualify for you, right? So, again, if you know yourself and you know what you like, you just gonna get with somebody just because you just trying to fill a slot. And now people do that too, right? But I think we need to start doing some more rejections out here. Some of y'all need to reject who you with right now. You know what I'm saying? That ain't the right person for you. But you too scared to be alone, right? Or you're trying to check these boxes out here instead of really being with the person who you really need to be with. So some of us need to start rejecting and gently letting down and preferably saying what we like and don't like. So, listen, I'm a guy. It comes with the territory of rejection.
Okay. I'm going to give a good example. I'm going to use me. I was in a conversation with the gentleman. We had been corresponding. We went out and he had told me his wife passed. And I said, oh, okay. I did tell him during conversation, I really want to see the death certificate because I've had a gentleman to lie in reference to that conversation. We're talking on the phone and he was talking about he wanted to go further. I said, well, I'd like both of us to share our credit reports, medical reports. You talking about going further. I went to the bathroom, came back to the table, he was gone. Did I do something wrong?
This wasn't your first date, was it?
This wasn't our first conversation, but it was the first meeting up. Yes. We had talked about this on the phone though, at length.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if here's the thing, again, you were setting your boundaries. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it, but there's, it's so funny. He went to the bathroom, came back, he was gone. I mean, what are you saying? Is there a quote, like, was there something wrong that you did?
Could I have done it a little more subtle? What was it? And I'm very straightforward, and I guess I'm 58 now. I just don't believe in wasting your time or my time.
I get it.
I know what I need, so I just ask for what I need.
And I think that's the difference. So would I have this conversation with a 20-year-old? Probably not. But somebody who's in their 50s or whatever case it be, yeah, let's just cut through the crap, because we already, way this clock is set up, we ain't got a lot of time. So, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that in that space. And again, you kind of prefaced it already by having the conversation when you were talking about it over the phone. Again, you were setting your boundaries. I think that that's okay. I think that's so funny. My friend said she was talking to a guy. I just thought about it real quickly. I had to laugh. She was talking to this guy, and he said that, I think that he made like $80,000 a year, right? And that was his 9 to 5. That was his W-2 job. Now, nothing against anybody who makes 80 or less, right? She was just like, but I can't do nothing with that. She said, because this is what you're making right now. Cool. Do you desire to make more? Because the way that she's set up, she makes more than that, right? So she's just like, okay, it's different if he's saying, okay, I'm here now, but I got another hustle, I got to, whatever case it be. But he was just kind of like, yeah, I'm just cool with 80. That conversation, and that was their first conversation. She was like that. She never talked to him again. Do I think there's anything wrong with that? No. She knows her boundaries, right? And this person was saying, this is who I am, and this is the way I'm going to stay. Not that I'm going to evolve. This is who he's going to stay. I think she made a very wise decision, right? So, it's all about you. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with what you did. There ain't nothing wrong with it. Shoot, that joker didn't want to give his credit. You late 50s, early 60s, what's your credit looking like? Because you had plenty of years to get that thing right? If you're in your 20s, credit jacked up, I get it, right? But you 50-something, and you also could have looked up the obituary probably, though, by the way. You ain't even need him to show it to you. You could have looked it up. Just FYI in the future.
Okay, and for future, I'm glad I got future look.
Google that.
Get full names? Yes, I will.
Mm-hmm. That's so funny.
Okay, next question. Relationships are like plants, and they need water. For a man, what does water look like in a relationship?
I get this question asked quite often because obviously being in this space, the one thing that people say is, what do men want, right? What do men want? What do they need? And I try to share with people, please hear me. There is no silver bullet for men. What men need is what that man needs.
Come on now.
And I think the difficulty that exists out here, because we have not had education in the relationship space, we think there's a one size fit all. We think that this is like back in the day, right? Watch this. Come on, old school. The way to a man's heart is through his
stomach.
That's a lie. I'm here to tell you that's a lie. Okay. I know that in the 1950s, that's, but we're cooking now. Okay. We don't even require women to cook anymore. Like on average, you don't even hear a man say that. You know what I'm saying? Like he's kind of like, we got to do. I got it. I got the cooking. Okay, so it's not a one size fit. It's not sex 7 days a week. It's not, right? If you just give them some and then shut up and go in the corner, no. Men require more than that. We actually require conversation. We just didn't know it. Right. So what a man needs is what that man needs. And what your responsibility is, ma'am, right, is to find out what he needs. Because I know you, when you was with that one, you did him like that. This one wants to get done like this. So if you do him like you did him, he's not going to like it. And you're going to be baffled because you're like, well, he liked it. Yeah, he did. What does he want? Not that. And there's actually work. What? Hold on. There's actually work that you have to do, ladies, in order to maintain a relationship beyond your prettiness, beyond your sex, beyond what you think you bring to the table. Let me just say this really quickly. Your table on average is not as important to us. Okay. I know a lot of times you think that you're great and that you out the degrees and the money that you make and all that. On average, we got the table, okay? And I'm talking about the men. I'm talking about men, real men, if you will, right? So you come into the table with what you think is the table. That's really not the table. What you need to come to the table with is the ability to extract from him what he needs and then see, can you qualify for his need? That's a skill, right? That's a skill. If you come to the table with your table and say, hey, I got all this should be enough for you, that's not going to work. You got to do some research, right? You have to figure out who that man is, what makes him tick, right? And do you qualify to make him tick while being your great table? If you don't, 9 times out of 10, again, here comes the gap, right? And that gap, once it somebody going to fill it, something's going to fill it. All right. So what, again, to answer your question, what men need is what that man needs. And it's your responsibility, ladies, to figure out what that is.
Elam, I just love you. You so direct. I think I was you in another life. You just you just straight to the point, direct. You don't candy coat it. Oh, Lord, send him. I just appreciate you not playing around tonight and just giving us the skinny. I know everybody can't take it, but I can.
Yeah.
I know everybody's not made to receive it, but I'm excited about it.
Well,
next question.
Let me just say this. If the responsibility of being in a relationship is actually walking with that person and doing what it takes to maintain that relationship. And I think that sometimes when people start, in the beginning, they're willing to do the work and then they want to sit back. It's an ongoing thing, right? Because you evolve, we evolve too, right? And so the responsibility in order to maintain that relationship, you have to do some work. And I think that we feel like that at some point we can stop working. And that's the reason why that our divorce rate is up to 70% in the Black community. Let's look at that. You have when you line up 10 Black couples right now, 70% of them, it's up to a 70% chance that 7 of those, line up 10, 7 of them aren't going to make it. That's not a small statistic. And why do you think that there's a bigger, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, my camera, I don't know what my camera's doing right now, but
good.
We wonder why our communities aren't growing. We're going down at 7 out of 10 to not build a family with mom and dad and baby in house. Well, what do you think that's going to play? How do you think that plays out down the road? Right? So that means anybody who ever played a sport, right? When you're going up against a rival team, how do you practice the week or two before that game? You practice just a little bit harder. Why? Because you have a higher probability of losing that game. So, what do we think we need to do inside of these marriages? You have a higher probability of losing in that marriage than winning. So that means that you have to come into that. The responsibility of that is to come into the relationship doing work and know that it's going to be ongoing. It doesn't stop. Right. I know a lot of times when it comes to our children, we'll say things like, I'm just going to love my children forever. I'm always going to be there for them. I'd be questioning that because I don't know about always. But people say it like it's okay. I'm always going to be there for my children for the rest of their lives. Women say it all the time. Come on, moms. You say it. I'm going to be there for them forever. And sometimes you need to let go. You won't let go of who needs to be let go of so that they can go fly. But you let go of doing the work inside of your household because y'all been together 10, 15 years. And he should just know it. Or you don't feel like doing the work. That ain't going to work. All right. This thing has a responsibility to it. All right. It's not just about taking pictures and going on family trips. Right. And just say, let's trust God and love. Right. The church isn't growing a lot because we're not even seeking God. We don't even want to tell our pastors or people in the church the problems that we have. Everybody got problems, but you don't want to tell them because you don't want the church to know. What? Are you kidding me? It doesn't even make any sense. All right. That's who should know. They got problems too. Trust me, all of them. If you're married right now, you got a problem right now. Everybody listening on this phone right now that's married, you got one problem. Don't tell me you don't, because you do. Are you working on it? What's that gap look like for you? You just let it go? I just told you it's going to get filled. Go. What's the next question?
Oh my Lord. Right before we came on tonight, me and my youngest daughter was having this conversation. And we were talking about, do we marry potential or date potential? I was like, and she kept saying married because you date towards marriage. And I said, I do believe that, but everybody doesn't date toward marriage. So if a person has an anger issue, you see that in a relationship, they say they're working on it. I asked her, how long do you wait for them to get past that? And how long do you stay? And then she said, well, what if if we're getting a discussion and the person looks like they're calming down, looks like they're not piping off. To me, that doesn't mean that they're changed. That just means they're fixing that for that moment for you to see it. Little changes, getting counseling, what you're working on, what you're doing, what books you're reading. I had a difference with that than she did. So how do you date potential and marry potential?
I'm going to say you actually just said exactly the way I like to share that information when it comes to change, right? In chapter 4 of my book, Understanding a Man, my first book, Understanding a Man, Empowering Women with Tools for Lasting Relationship. In chapter 4, I talk about dating in that chapter. And in that chapter, I only had the single men speak and kind of share some information regarding what women need to know. That chapter is called Do You See Me? Okay. And so a lot of times, ladies, because of the level of greatness that you are, your power of discernment is so good to the point to whereas a lot of times you can see certain things, see what you don't like or whatever, but then you might say, okay, well, he's had potential. And let's just say, for example, the guy's like, whether it is an anger thing or maybe it's I've been hurt thing or whatever, and I don't want to commit. Okay. All right. I always tell women, whatever their challenge is that you want them, that you don't like, whatever case would be, but they say they're working on it. I say, set the clock. Set a clock up here. You ain't got to tell them when you're dating, right? Set the clock, right? And you watch what they do. So step 1, actually, that's by that time, it's actually step 2 of setting, look at what they're doing. Pay attention. Okay. Step 3, whatever you see, believe it. If you see them saying that they're going to work on something, but like you just said, you don't see no books, you don't see no seminars, you don't see no counseling, but they're telling you they're working on it, that's a problem. That's not potential that you're marrying, right? You think that they're going to get married, right? You think you're going to marry them and they're just going to magically, deliciously change. No, what you see right now is who they're going to be down the road. Marriage pours gas on whatever they already had. It doesn't change it. Think about COVID poured gas on everybody's relationship. Whatever was going on, COVID brought it out, right? If y'all wasn't friends, you found out during COVID and you probably broke up, right? If y'all had some challenges going on, COVID poured gas on it. It was already there. That's the same thing that a marriage does. Whatever the issue is, it's going to make it bigger. It's not going to go away. So whatever you don't like right now, and you saying that person's potential, but they're not working on it, just know that if you marry them, it's going to be bigger than what it is right now. It's not going to get better. Now, could it? Well, yeah. But you're running a very high risk of it not, because what you see is who that person really is. And then when they get married, they're going to get comfortable and really back up. Right? So, you got to pay attention to that. You need to see them working. You can give them grace on the time for them to transition through that. If you see them actively working, right? Salvation is work, right? Just because we get saved, that ain't nothing, right? It's the salvation. That's where the relationship with God, the really understanding and learning and knowing, that's here go to work. But if you know that it's work and you know our flesh is jacked up, but you see him studying to show himself approved. You see him seeking some counsel, right? You see him studying the word. You see him praying, right? If you see that, then you know that there can be a transition, that God is chiseling and working on that person. But you don't see nothing. Talking about potential. Okay, you're going to be potentially getting right up out of that marriage as soon as possible. That's what's going to happen. That's all that's going to happen in that.
The person who I met you through, Miss Pamela Bird, is on tonight.
Yes, hey Pam. Hey, I do say hey Pam.
Hey everybody, all my prayer partners are on. They spend every Saturday night. Some of my church members on. I appreciate you guys.
I hope I didn't get you in trouble, because that,
you know what, I stay in a lot of trouble, Eli, because I'm a little unorthodox as a preacher and as a Christian woman, and it's really unorthodox to tell your truth even when you're jacked up and just put it out there for the world. But I know my pain is purposeful and it's going to help somebody, so I really don't care that much about it. So he created me, and I was built for this right here, for what I'm doing now. So, and I know you were too. Elam, if you wanted to say something, your last word, say something that can help a woman that's in a relationship that is shelf life is over. The milk is already spoiled and they're still there. What would you say?
I would say that, what is your self-worth worth? When you know who you are and you know whose you are, and there's certain things that you should have. There are certain things that he built you for. There are certain blessings. There's certain blessings that have not been sent to you because you are not maximizing your worth by attaching yourself to someone who can progress you and that values you, right? And this was something I had to do for myself. So watch this. I'm going to be transparent here, right? Was married for 15 years before I then one day, 16 years before one day I understood my self-worth. I was one of those people that didn't have their boundaries. I got married at 25. I didn't know who I was, right? From 0 to 3 children, because I had a blended family, right? So, of the same era of not communicating, right? Not understanding who I love language. Oh, I was married for 5-7 years into my marriage before I even heard about those love languages. I was just like, well, where was this 5-7 years ago, right? So, and so because of that, it was a time before I understood who I was. And once I understood who I was, I looked up and recognized that I had attached myself to what was a great person, but wasn't my person. Right. So she's a great person, but she wasn't my person. Now, it was my fault. I take full responsibility for not understanding who I was, not qualifying for the situation. And I knew it as I navigated through it. But come on, house, Now there's 4 kids. Where's this coming from? Right? You know what I'm saying? Now jobs, live here, lifestyle, all those things. You start looking at it like, well, I guess I'm gonna just stay on in this thing. And that's what a lot of people do, right? And then you look up and you wonder why we dying early. You wondering why your body, from an illness perspective, is sitting like that. Hey, 80% of the people who are in the hospital right now are there because of stress. Okay, a lot of that stress comes from our homes, right? So if you want to die early, keep doing what you're doing, right? If you cute now, you ain't gonna be cute in a couple of years. You're gonna look like what you're going through. Okay. And then so my thing is, what is your self-worth worth, right? If it's worth you sticking in there because you just want to do that, okay, right? It wasn't worth that for me, and it was difficult, but at the end of the day, that's when being in prayer and things of that nature allowed me to transition out of that. And I just want to say to my singles, it's real tough when you get up in there and you made the wrong decision and you got to get out of there. So right now, while you're in a situation where you don't have to worry about that, or maybe you're even in a relationship, right, and you know that that's not where you need to be, get out now. Just drop 1 or 2 tears before you have to drop some dollars, right, in order to get out of that situation. It's free now. Run. Run, men or women, and that's men or women, right? That's across the board, right? So what's your self-worth worth, and act accordingly to that.
Elin, you gotta promise to come back. You've gotta promise to come back. I love it. And when you come back, I want Pam to come on. So we gonna round it off. Me, you, and Pam.
Pam said she was bamming on her computer.
Y'all have to forgive us. All 3 of us are coaches, and we know each other, and we've shared platforms before. But Elam, I want to say thank you. You help me every time I watch your podcast. I watch snippets. I sit there and I'll be like, dog, I wish I hadn't done that. Oh, I wish I'd have knew Elam 5 years ago. Oh, you would have. My life.
I wish I knew me by 5 years.
So sad. It ended.
Oh, man.
If I had known you then, the shelf life on it would have ended a lot sooner. Because you just give real information. And you are helping me right now to make a good decision.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. I mean, a lot of this comes from trials and error that I've been through, but I don't know when I started caring about people. It was maybe 10 years ago I started, and I say that just like that. Like, I was a very selfish person. And one day I started caring about people, and I'm like, I don't want other people to go through what I went through. So maybe I'm gonna just tell everybody what happened, and try to help people to make some better decisions. So it's it comes from a place of School of Hard Knocks, but I hope that we at least shared with one person tonight something that can allow them to grow through their existing situation and come out in a much more positive light faster than maybe yourself or myself did.
I think everybody's loving you tonight. I appreciate you, Elam. Text me the names of your platforms, especially your podcast. I would love to share it. Send me the link so I can share it.
Okay.
Because you would do a flyer Saturday night, by Sunday morning it's out. Because I know you're an amazing coach. And
I appreciate it.
Some of us need somebody. I need somebody rough like you. I don't need nobody who's real sweet and just gonna bend to my will, because I got a strong personality. So I need somebody's personality who's a lot stronger than mine to say, come on, girl, get yourself together.
I'm trying to tell you.
Get yourself together. And you know you wrong. See, you if I'm sitting in front of you, you gonna tell me, girl, you know you wrong, and I can take it. Right. Everybody might not need somebody like you, but I need somebody like you in my life. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Always fun on the platform. Me, you, and Pam. That's going to be a whole explosion all over the computer. So I'm looking forward to it.
So y'all, we're going to be looking around August. around August, September, because I'm booked out right through there. But
Okay.
around August would be amazing that me, you, and Pam can get on here and share. And I don't think we're gonna pin down a topic. It's gonna be about relationship and boundaries, but people can ask whatever questions they want. We're gonna have an open forum. I got my TikTok family on. We're gonna say goodnight to them in a moment because they're watching, and I got plenty of people on. But I say I love you tonight, Elam, and I appreciate you.
Thank you
I
so much.
appreciate you too. And good night to all my guests tonight. Thank you for spending your Saturday night with me. You could be anywhere, but you're here tonight. And I want you to have a good night. Have an amazing service on tomorrow. Good night, everybody. We're going to end
Good night.
another episode of Straight Talk Food for the Soul. Love you guys.